Welcome back to another episode on the Rooted and Rested podcast. I'm Natanya, and today we're going to talk about why high-functioning women are finding it so hard to switch off. I may have got your attention there, but one of the most important things I feel I see regularly with my clients is that I don't actually think high-functioning women have forgotten how to rest. And we're going to dive into some of that and what that means. And maybe you'll relate to some of it. Maybe it will be new to you. Maybe there'll be something that you can actually implement or apply to your own life as we dive into this topic. It's one of my favorite topics because I feel like there's just so many people out there that relate to it. I think we've all kidded ourselves, particularly for women who are, let's say, over the age of 35. There's a lot of things that we feel that we should be engaging with or should feel like or should have a handle on, and we just haven't. And there's a very real internal wrestling going on. There's a lot of guilt wrapped up in our generation where we feel we have to be these amazing parents and we have to be these amazing breadwinners and we have to run a home that is, spick and span and hosting the millions all of the time. And we have all of these expectations of what we think life should look like, but holding all of those things is just absolutely impossible. We were sold a dream by the generation before us, and things just changed so much between their generation and our generation. And the generation after us with our kids is again so different. We're in this in-between twilight zone where none of the things that we saw exemplified in our parents are real for us, while also navigating a completely new reality with our children. So we're kind of stuck between these two sets of realities that we do not know how to juggle. And that is so often the case when I sit with my clients. So I don't think that our generation, particularly the ones that hold a lot, that maybe work in the upper echelons of businesses or maybe their own business, or maybe they just have 1,000 hats on. It's not necessarily that high functioning has to mean top of, second in command of Amazon. This is not what I mean. When I say high functioning, I mean women who are carrying a lot. They may be in the throes of full-time parenting while also trying to be full-time business, full-time home, full-time, there are 1,000 hats that women wear in this season of life. I don't think that we've forgotten how to rest. I think we don't know how to convince our nervous systems that they are safe enough to switch off. They don't know how to pause, even remotely slightly, because so many women are living in the near constant state of pressure, emotional responsibility, stimulation, invisible labor, and over time, our bodies adapt to that pace, and that becomes our new baseline. And eventually, slowing down starts to feel uncomfortable to us. And I can relate to this so personally because I've been on holidays where I've gone and I've had everything set up for success. I've had, the flights are at reasonable times. It's all inclusive. I've done that once in my life. It's, the everything's set up for me to be able to switch off and fully engage with rest. And somehow I get home and I feel just as exhausted, if not more exhausted than before I went. Why is that? What is that about? That is a very consistent theme that I hear from my clients, from my friends, and from myself. So today I want to talk about why is it that so many women feel exhausted but can't relax? Why doesn't rest feel restful or restorative? What chronic nervous system activation actually does to the body, and why high functioning burnout so often goes unnoticed for years, because many women, including myself, have normalized that baseline of survival mode has become their normal. It's become unrecognizable as survival mode because it's just daily life. So what is it about burnout? It's a very buzzword at the moment. It's a very trendy thing to talk about. Why is it that high functioning burnout doesn't look like what people expect. I think we often imagine burnout to look like, people collapsing, quitting their life, just having a complete breakdown, an inability to function, just, can't cope with anything. But I think for many women, it can look like that is a very severe breakdown. If that's what's going on, please get in touch. But for many, many women, burnout looks a lot different. It looks like continuing to perform while just being constantly exhausted on the inside. It means functioning constantly on adrenaline and not recognizing that you're not coming down from that adrenaline high. It means complete emotional numbness or complete shutdown emotionally. I've also been there. It's not. It's an inability to interact and activate emotions in the correct way. It's unexplainable irritability. It's constant mental juggling, mental loads, trying to navigate who, what, when, how with all the different things that are going on in our lives. It is an absolute impossibility to switch off. Complete, just not able to switch off. It's feeling detached from my own life. That is one of the scariest feelings because you no longer recognize anything around you. You're like a zombie going through the motions. You're completely detached. I also have been in that place myself. And it's exhaustion that rest doesn't ever seem to fix. That is the definition of burnout in the high capacity, high functioning clients that I often spend time with. So many, many high functioning women become exceptionally skilled at functioning while being completely dysregulated. So what makes me angry about this is how much praise is loaded onto women when they are coping in this way. It is the reward that we're given for hyper responsibility and over functioning. And that becomes our identity. We take that like a badge of honor, like we are absolutely, completely over the top responsible for way too much stuff. We are not coping. We're totally burned out, like I've just described. We're high functioning. We've got, all these things that we take on, and we're praised for it. And we're given this kind of, wow, they are so amazing, and that becomes, we need that. It becomes like food. But the problem is that all of this is masking our nervous system exhaustion. And we get labeled as the reliable one. So there's no way out. Because if you don't do all these things and continue with all these responsibilities and all of these over extensions that we've put in our life, we're no longer reliable. And that is not a good look for a mom or a businesswoman. And so you're backed into this corner where you really can't, you don't have a choice. You have to keep going. So my question is always, how many women are being praised for resilience when their nervous systems are totally overwhelmed? Probably more than you think. So why is it that women do struggle to switch off? I think one of the biggest misunderstandings around rest is that people assume that the body automatically relaxes just because the workload stops. But the nervous system does not respond to logic, it responds to safety. And I always talk about anxiety as the perfect example of this, because most of the time, now this is not 100% of the time. There are times when an anxiety attack is perfectly legitimate and a good response to a danger, a legitimate response to a danger, to a threat, and anxiety or panic is the correct response and it keeps you safe. But a lot of the time, people who struggle with anxiety and panic attacks, it is not a logical response to what is happening to them. And the fact that you can't talk your way out of a panic attack shows you that it's not logical and it is not based on intelligence or rationale. It is to do with the body feeling safe. In that moment, when you're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, something about what your surroundings are telling you or the circumstances are telling you is telling your body it's not safe. It might just be reminding the body of something it's been through in the past. Something has reminded your nervous system of a similar situation when it wasn't safe and it's responding again in the same way. It likes patterns, but it needs safety. You can't talk your way out, rationalize your way out. You can't explain your way out. It's not logical. It's primal. It's survivalist. So we are going to talk about chronic activation, hypervigilance, constant accessibility. Which ones of these would you put a tick next to if you had to do a little audit of your current life? Chronic activation. What does that mean? It means that you are overextending yourself in every direction. You're committing to too many rides for your kids. You are taking on too many things in the diary. You are saying yes to all the tasks that are being allocated to you at work. You are trying to also go to a fitness class. You're trying to clean your house. You're trying to cook. You're trying to be vegan. You're trying to be organic. This is chronic activation. You are activating yourself in 1,000 directions and expecting to succeed in all of them. But you're also being hypervigilant, which means you're being very, very tight-reined about the things that you are doing as well. Your constant accessibility to you, that means that you're available to everybody all of the time. Now, this is a problem I see across the generations. WhatsApp and all Slack and email and phone calls, although phone calls is less invasive. I think I find a lot less people make phone calls now. That you're just constantly available. All the social media DMs, if you've got your notifications on, you're just getting pinged all over the place all of the time. And I know, especially for women in their, midlife season, when they've got children as well as work, it is very difficult to navigate turning off your notifications or putting your phone on do not disturb, because you need to be accessible to your children. School might call you, or the doctors might call you, or your child may have been rushed into hospital. The hospital might call. There's all of these things are juggled. So how do you turn yourself off in terms of accessibility without also removing yourself from your responsibilities towards your children or your boss or whoever? And so you layer into that, you also have emotional labor. So you're carrying all of these things, all of these people, and it's a lot, it's a load. And then you add in digital overwhelm. So not only are we carrying all these things, overextending, being completely accessible to too many people, carrying the emotions of everyone. I said to my child the other day, you have to understand, as a mother, I am like a sponge. So I am absorbing everybody's stuff. You yell at me because you're upset about something, I'm absorbing that. My husband needs to have a download about his work, I'm absorbing that. It's every direction, people letting off their steam, having a go, feeling, they need to vent or whatever. You absorb all of these things. And then you add in digital overwhelm and you decide to do the same online. Why do we do this? Why? I ask myself that nearly every day when I realize I've done it again. I go online and I digitally absorb all of that emotion too. Why? I don't know. We also are always needed, particularly if we are carrying a lot of responsibility at work and then we come home, maybe we have kids, we have a lot of responsibility to carry there too. There's a lot of responsibility. It sometimes can get very, very heavy. There might also be leadership pressure. If you are leading a business or running a business yourself or leading teams, maybe you're a manager or a director, this is a huge amount of responsibility that you have to carry. And then you get home and maybe you've got that at home too. Maybe you are also carrying all of the caregiving responsibilities. Maybe it's not even kids, maybe it's elderly parents or foster children or whatever it is. There's caregiving on top. All of this just amounts to massive amounts of overstimulation and total chronic exhaustion. And our bodies adapt to prolonged stress. So eventually, stillness can feel unfamiliar and quiet can feel really uncomfortable, which is why we reach for our phones. Rest can trigger anxiety because our baseline is off base. And slowing down can actually feel unsafe. So women don't struggle to rest because they're lazy. They struggle because their bodies have learned that being off duty feels unsafe. And that is what I mean when I say our baseline has moved. It's not actually a regulated place. Our baseline has become dysregulation and complete overstimulation. So our nervous system has actually become conditioned. And I think that is one of the things I see most frequently in my clients, particularly my clients that come to me because they feel that they are dysregulated as leaders, whether that's in a workplace they're employed in or their own businesses that they run. This dysregulated leader is a massive problem because it affects everything. It affects how they make decisions about their teams, their colleagues, their finances. Everything is affected by a dysregulated leader. Same in the home. If you have a dysregulated parent who is leading the home, your children will be feeling that. They will get the ramifications of that. So our nervous system becomes conditioned by urgency and anticipation, productivity, responsibility, alertness, and many, many women only feel psychologically safe when they are useful, productive, needed, and overachieving. And that's what I mean when I say that this has become an identity. So it feels very difficult for women to move out of that place because it feels like the stakes are high if they have to either choose between the identity that makes them feel good and health. And they don't feel like they can have both. And that is where I feel my little niche of coaching comes into its own, because I don't agree with that at all. I think you can have a life that is thriving and growing and your capacity is expanding without it costing you everything. It can't cost you everything. It's not worth it, I promise you. So, what is the nervous system impact of modern life? I honestly don't think the modern nervous system was designed for the amount of stimulation, accessibility, emotional pressure that most of us are carrying now. We're not designed for it. We really aren't. And a really small example of this is, emotionally and mentally, we are not designed to carry all of the events of the whole planet. If you think historically, for the vast majority of history, the really vast majority of history, we would only have known what was going on immediately in our little village or town. And if we were well-to-do enough and had access, like a horse, to a larger city, then maybe we might know a little bit about what was going on there as well. But beyond that, we would not know. We would, until radio and printing happened, we wouldn't have known anything beyond word of mouth in the immediate vicinity. We're not designed, and this is just one tiny, tiny fraction of life. We were not designed to be able to see, touch, reach out, understand, hear about the whole planet in the way that we do. And it has a tremendous effect on our nervous system. So if we micro that down into little things, talk about our phones and the constant notifications that we get. Now, I am quite strict with my notifications. I don't allow any social media notifications to come through on my phone. The only thing I get is WhatsApp, and I instantly mute any group that I'm in. Now, I'm not saying I have it right. I very much feel like I've got a long way to go on my phone management and notification management, even with all of those in place. But we are not designed to be constantly interrupted every 2 seconds sometimes by a ping of an email or a WhatsApp coming in or a Slack message or a Telegram or whatever. All these different apps that we use to connect us, we're not designed. And that is a constant stress on our system. We are also supposed to have very clear boundaries between work and life. And that is also something that has become very, very blurred. I know for me, over the years, I've had a variety of different businesses that I've had over the years. And the one thing that I can honestly, hand on heart, say is I have always been good at boundaries with work, which means when I hit that time of end of day, whenever I decide that is, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever, I'm actually pretty good at turning it off and not continuing to think and juggle and whatever all evening. Now, why? Because most of the time that I was in that zone of business or that stage of business, I had children. And so I had to switch off work and get into kids zone. So whether that was making dinner or bedtime or bath time or whatever it was a very clear separation for me that I had to jump from one to the other. And I can imagine for people that don't have that kind of very loud and clingy thing that needs attention, um, it's hard to get those boundaries right. I think one of the decisions that I made with my current business from the get-go was that I wanted to do a 4-day week. And I was very determined to make my 4 days super productive and have that one day where I did all the house admin, whatever admin for life needs to be done, I'm doing it on that one day, and then I'm still getting my 2-day weekend. That was how I wanted to set my life up, my business up. I wanted to start as I meant to continue, and I have done that. And I'm actually really pleased with how I've managed to do that. It's not always simple, and I do struggle with guilt sometimes, but I'm on the whole very happy with that decision. And I think we are not very good. One of the first things I often have to talk about with clients is immediately needing to do some boundary work, whether that's time blocking, whether that is setting themselves up for success for rest, which we are also terrible at, whether that is not allowing the laptop to open in the home. I find that when you actually push people and you really, really make a point of saying, okay, an email came in. Is anyone going to die if you don't reply till tomorrow morning? No, of course they're not. Of course they're not. And actually, people on the whole are quite reasonable. If you say, your email came in after hours and I was dealing with my children, I don't know that many people would be upset or angry about the time it took you to reply to them. And if they are, I would question, are they really people you want to be doing business with? Because life has to happen. And actually, boundaries are a sign of maturity, intelligence, and safe place to work. So actually, you exemplifying that you can have a boundary and that you're not available outside of them and you're not just sitting around waiting for everybody to email you, that's actually a really positive thing for a person to see. I'm impressed when I hear that. Do you know what? Took you 3 hours to reply to me? Good for you. You know, there's a difference. I think people can smell it. It's a difference between someone that is like, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't be bothered. And I've got boundaries in place and I'm going to get to you when I get to you. There's a difference and people can tell. So boundaries is a massive part of how much we set ourselves up for success in what we carry. Overstimulation, you know, that is, we've kidded ourselves that watching TV every evening, which I totally do, but watching TV every evening is the best way to rest. It's not. It's not. It's not helping our brains rest. I actually, when I hit 40, which, you know, was not very long ago. But when I hit 40, I had a real kind of life moment, very stereotypically. I had a life moment where I really started to like audit myself a little bit. Like, what is this reflection I'm seeing here in the mirror? Like, do I even recognize this person? And I realized that there were some things I was really disappointed in and wasn't completely content with to carry on. And I made some major life adjustments. And one of the things that I did was I decided that as a child and a teenager, I'd always been quite an avid reader. And I was really sad that I'd lost that because I loved it. I loved reading. And I went on a little journey of trying to get back into reading. And you know, then I stumbled upon these books and it sucked me into this whole world of reading that absolutely captured me. And I haven't looked back since. And I read all the time. I read all the time, not in work hours, but I will happily sit and read instead of watching TV. And I definitely, you know, my husband and I used to go to bed every evening and put the TV on in our room. We never do that. We don't even have a TV anymore in our room. We read, and it's actually completely changed my quality of rest, the amount of down, like how effective that coming down at the end of the day. It's like a ritual to really help, and it does help. TV does not do that for your brain. So there are so many things that we can adjust and change to help kind of dampen the effects of that overstimulation that we all live in. It's total sensory overload all of the time. And, information saturation, like we've just got way too much that's going on around us. And a lot of that is driven by a productivity culture. We are rewarded for productivity, and the pressure is there to constantly optimize, constantly be at your best, constantly overachieve. I think many women are waking up following a poor sleep and they are already overstimulated in their brains. And they're moving all day through environments that never feel restorative. They are consuming constant noise, constant, and they're never fully exhaling. Some women that I work with have not truly relaxed in years, even when they are technically on holiday or taking a break. So, and it's just heartbreaking for me. Most of my clients relate to that sentence in a very, very deep way. So, for high capacity women and leaders, there is, without a doubt, all of my clients I can say this about. There is decision fatigue. There's responsibility fatigue. There is a major problem with emotional containment. There is pressure to remain composed and on it. They're on all the time. And they're carrying teams and families and business. Leadership pressure is physiological. It's not just mental. I think that is the thing that I can't press home enough. You are not just a detached mind wandering around with no effect or connection to the body it lives in. When you carry all of this, it has a physical effect. It all lives inside of your body. It's not just in your mind. So why is it that rest doesn't feel restful? I've asked myself that when I came back from holiday and found myself exhausted, having just spent 10 days lying down next to a swimming pool reading books. I literally asked myself that question. I was like, how can it be that I have come back from this glorious 10 days in the sun? I've got a tan, I've read a great book or three, I've had lovely time out, and I'm exhausted, and not just exhausted in a kind of, I had a bad night's sleep. Very, very deep in my body, completely, absolutely spent. One of the things I hear most commonly is, I finally stopped, but I couldn't relax. So what does that mean? Well, the rest fails when the nervous system still expects pressure because your baseline is off. It fails because the environment around us is still communicating stress. It fails because the people around us are still holding us in a place of unsafety. It fails because the body has not experienced safety consistently enough to actually believe it can stop. And it fails because it feels very, very unfamiliar. So when you're exhausted and you're on holiday, it's a very easy thing to just go, well, you know what? I'm on holiday. I'll just scroll some Insta, do some TikToking. Is that a thing? Can you say that? TikToking? I'm going to do some TikTok. And you end up doom scrolling for 3 hours while you're on holiday. Is that actually telling your body that it can stop? No, it's not. It's just oversaturating again. And it's that 2-second goldfish memory and attention span. We need to actually stop doing that because our body learns this pattern. That quick doom scrolling habit becomes a baseline, becomes a normal, becomes the place of safety. So when you stop doing it, that's what the addiction is. You stop doing it, it doesn't feel safe. It feels unfamiliar. It feels unsettling. So being physically still, but mentally activated or overactivated, that is why holidays don't work. if you don't know how to unwind, if you haven't learned how to rest. I think rest should be like a essential skills lesson that people are taught at university or A level or something, because you have to learn how to do it. You have to be able to read and understand your body so that when you stop, your body goes, aha, I know what's happening here. Ah, finally, quick scan, all good. Right, let's chill. We don't teach our body how to do that. We don't know how to learn those signs from our bodies. We haven't been taught as a generation, our generation, we never learned any of this stuff. We haven't learned how to understand the somatics of our bodies. We haven't learned it. It may not be about going on holiday, because let's face it, the vast majority of our rest is done after work, on the weekends, at home. The problem could be with the home. It could be that there's too much responsibility. It could be that the spaces have been designed in a way that are actually not conducive to rest. I always say that my speciality with coaching is that I bring in spaces. It's somatics and surroundings. They both have to work together. You can have a perfectly regulated nervous system, but if your space is hijacking that, it doesn't matter. It's going to be dysregulated again. You have to have a surroundings that helps a healthy nervous system. You cannot heal chronic overwhelm inside an environment that is constantly keeping your nervous system on alert. So what environmental and surroundings is a massive topic, and a whole arm of my business where I literally go into people's homes. I help them audit how they feel and what they need from their home compared to what it's doing. And you would not believe how much of an enlightening process that is for people. They're very disconnected. We compartmentalize so much. We've done it within the health system. You compartmentalize mental and physical health. They're completely different. We do it the same with our surroundings. You don't think that your living room is going to affect your nervous system or your health. Of course not. But they totally impact each other. If your living room is absolutely full to the brim of clutter and is overstimulating and is not set up to be a restorative space, your nervous system will stay on alert. Just physical biology, it's how it works. If you're working and trying to rest in the same space, you can do it, but you need to know how. And also there's a ton of layers when it comes to emotional association with different spaces. We have triggers and memories and glimmers, which are like the positive flip side of a trigger. There's so many different layers and nuances that we as people have towards the spaces that we operate in, particularly with offices. I've worked with women who have come to me with anxiety, panic, heart palpitations every time they walk into their office at work. And you try and unpack why, and they'll just say, oh, I'm just really stressed at work. But when you dig deeper and you actually start to identify what's going on in their body, you will start to understand that the space itself has an effect, coupled with different people and relational things, coupled with the load that they're carrying. These things all work together and create an unsafe environment that your body is recognizing, and the heart palpitations is just preparing to go into a stress response. So how do we make a shift? This conversation is not about becoming less ambitious. I love that my clients are all so ambitious, sometimes overly ambitious, and I love that. It's not about trying to dull down what you're doing or becoming, less, dreaming less. It's not about that. It's about no longer requiring your body to live in survival mode in order to succeed. That is the shift. That's the big understanding shift that I work my clients through, where they have to reconnect with their bodies. It's one thing to learn a bunch of theory, but you have to be able to apply it to your own self, your own body, you have to start listening to yourself. And we're not very good at that. We're very good at ignoring every single sign that we may be getting from ourselves and just powering through. I did it for years. I totally know what that's like. The goal is sustainable capacity, nervous system safety, restorative environments, healthier leadership, emotional regulation, and lives that allow recovery. And these are all things that my program is focused around the word rest, REST. We have restore, explore, stabilize, and thrive. Those are the 4 pillars of my coaching program, and we move people from that first initial survival mode, burnout, panic, anxiety, whatever it is that's brought them to me. We move them from there through this process where they can, at the end, have this massively expanded capacity because they understand how to listen to their body, and they can navigate that capacity with actual integrity, and they become embodied leaders. They become examples of healthy leadership. So what if the problem isn't that you're bad at resting? What if your nervous system simply adapted to a life that never truly felt safe enough to soften inside? So that is a question. The word soften, it's basically about safety. And actually, when you feel safe, you do soften. It's do you feel safe enough that your shoulders are not living around your ears? That's a big telltale sign. People come to me and they're like really tense. They have their jaw clenching. They've got problems with their teeth because they've been grinding their teeth at night. They've got painful joints in their knuckles because they are constantly clenching. They have IBS because their stomach is in knots all the time because they're carrying this stress. Some people have heart palpitations and stress across their chest and neck. There's all kinds of physical manifestations of the amount of dysregulation we carry in our bodies. And, it's first of all, it's far more common than you think. So if you're hearing this and it's resonating with you, you are so not alone, first of all. The amount of dysregulation there is in all spheres of life is absolutely enormous. I think life at the moment in this day and age is not set up for regulation. And if you want to live a regulated life, you've got to be intentional about it, because everything around us is trying to compromise that. So if this episode has resonated with you in any way, I do want you to know this: your exhaustion is not a personal failure. Many women are functioning inside levels of pressure and stimulation and emotional responsibility that their nervous systems were never designed to sustain continuously. And I think that is a really big thing to just allow to absorb, because we punish ourselves. We're very good at punishing ourselves for failing. And I say that if you're on a podcast and you can't see me, inverted commas, failing, to carry it all. We punish ourselves and we think that we are less worthy, or we're not a good mom, or we're not good at our job, or we're not this. And we're very negative and we punish ourselves when we're not designed to carry that level of sustained pressure, and our nervous system simply cannot cope, and probably is trying to send a very clear signal one way or another of, hey, what the flip, man? Can we sort this out, please? Because this isn't sustainable. And the more physical manifestations that we have in our body, the more it is our nervous system just simply trying to say, hey, floundering over here, you need to chill out. We need to sort this out. So the answer is not simply becoming more resilient to exhaustion. The answer is not pushing through, or that to-do list getting more, concise. It's about creating lives, leadership styles, homes, offices, surroundings that don't require survival mode in the first place. And that's what my program is all about. It is about removing survival mode from the baseline. It's about survival mode is important because it is there for when you are truly in danger. We need that. Our nervous systems are doing everything right. We've just muted it. We don't listen to it. We don't know how to listen to it. So it's about creating a life, creating a leadership, creating businesses and surroundings that don't require survival mode in the first place as a baseline. So if that resonates with you, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel, share it with anyone who's carrying a lot who might resonate. And I would love to invite you to have a conversation. Drop a comment, send me an email, jump on the website and see if the coaching program's right for you, book a discovery call. There's all kinds of ways you can interact. I have a free rest test that you can do on the website. The rest test is a very comprehensive onboarding process that I use for my clients, both coaching and interiors. It's the same onboarding, which tells you everything you need to know about the two and how they interact. And I designed a shorter version of it that is a freebie for anyone to have a little look, that assesses all the different areas of life, just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that you could be looking at or listening to. You're very welcome to go and take it, have a look at it, and maybe it triggers something in you that prompts another conversation or prompts the question of whether you need some coaching or some extra support in this area. That is available to you, and I'd love to hear how you find it. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and that has been the Rooted and Rested podcast, and I'll see you next time.